AI has changed the game forever for tech startups. So many things are different to what was considered just truth even a year ago, 2 years ago. And while business fundamentals are the same, you still want to make money, keep your costs low and keep growing. The way you do that today is so different. And it's something I've struggled with. I don't know how we keep growing, how we maintain an advantage in this world. So I've been thinking hard about it, I've been researching, I've been using all my podcast guests in order to get you 7 different ways to pay attention to so that you can win in the AI world. These are 7 ways you need to rethink building a startup today. Number 1, it's faster to build today than it's ever been before. The speed of build is up. Now this is great as a founder, right? Let's start on a positive, is that now you can have an idea, prototype using AI tools, and get something somewhat workable very quickly. This is great because before, you might have to take months, you might have to buy a dev team, whereas now you can really get your idea down, do it yourself for as long as possible, and also ship products quicker. So we look at it as 2 different phases. One is that initial phase, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur trying to test out an idea, but also if you already run a startup, before, when you're thinking about your product roadmap, and you're thinking, okay, we're going to release this feature in 3 months' time or 6 months' time, now that can be 3 days or 6 days. So that whole thing has been compressed. So when you're building now, you've got to adjust the timelines. You can't compare yourselves to startups of the past, where Canva or Figma, where they took months or even years to build out their products. Now you've got to move faster in order to stay ahead and in order to win. If you haven't tried vibe coding yet, try it. You can use Lovell, you can use Bolt.new, there's so many different tools out there. Just get in the game. Work out what you can do yourself without being technical or needing other technical people. Second point is that the time to duplication is down significantly too. Now, while the last point is showing about how great it is, it can build things really quickly, the problem is, so can everybody else. What takes you days to build also takes everybody else days to build, which is scary, right? Because before you could build something, it takes months. Then if somebody else has your idea, it will take them months too. And we always used to say to people that ideas are cheap and execution is everything. Now that execution is becoming quicker and easier, maybe you do have to protect your ideas more. Maybe you can't tell everybody your idea in the same way in terms of the building aspect, because then other people can build it before you can, if you're not on top of things. And there's 2 elements of this, right? When I talk about time to duplication, what do I actually mean? It means that if somebody sees your idea, how quick can it take for them to build it? And you've got 2 different risks here. One is a new upstart, right? So you've got the small side. So somebody else can take your idea and steal it and try and build it themselves. And if they can outcompete you on brand and other elements, then your idea is gone, done, dusted. The second element is the big companies. We saw recently where Google and Gemini announced massive updates, where ChatGPT announced massive updates, where Claude has announced massive updates. Now, what other people are building, so many startups just got wiped out whenever one of these larger companies releases new features. So before you could think, okay, Google is not going to bother with my product, or Anthropic is going to bother with my product. Now they can build things so easily and so quickly that you're at greater risk. And when you've invested so much time and effort and you're trying to build a brand and you may be giving up your job to do it, this is a really significant risk. And that time to duplication for anybody to do and the ease of doing that is a really big risk that you need to take into account. And if you're going to spend your time building something and giving up your job to do it or taking on financial risk to do it, you've got to really consider the realities of how quick is this to duplicate and do I have something which can protect me in that case. What a lot of people forget about AI and building in this world is that if you are doing something which is really data intensive, then the Googles of this world have got way bigger data centers and can spend way more compute power than you can. If you look at data, the larger companies can farm data so much quicker to train their models better than you can. So if you're trying to compete in that public sphere, it's very difficult and you need to work out how you're going to do that. That brings me to point 3. Brand loyalty is more important than it's ever been. And as somebody who owns a community, right? Now communities are a massive fad. Everybody's trying to build a community. But the reality is it's not easy. So when you look at different products, if the actual technological side becomes more of a commodity, unless you're building something really deep and really in depth, if the actual build is so commodified and everybody can just have the same idea issue and launch it quickly, then it's why they're going to use you over the competitor when the products are quite similar. And when you're both using AI to make the design and all those different things. So how do you build brand loyalty? Is that how can you use your mission, the way you think about things? Do people like you? And that becomes really difficult, right? Because look at LinkedIn today. When you go onto LinkedIn, how many of those posts are clearly AI generated? But also the sad thing is how many of those posts are AI generated, but also working and they're getting loads of engagement. So when people talk about, okay, yeah, brand is now really important because execution is easy. The challenge is brand is also becoming easier because everybody can use these AI tools to also create huge amounts of content. And we've got to work out how is this going to adjust over time? Because with there's so much noise now, right? How do you make your brand stand out in all of that noise? What we're investing in and why we're doing things the way we're doing them is those in-person side of things. But again, that's becoming more competitive because everybody's realizing if the online space is so saturated, then okay, you need to go offline. But when there's so many people now trying to host events who are only doing it to sell their product, it becomes really obvious and it becomes less authentic. So this is a huge challenge in the age of AI, is how do you build a brand that people care about and love when everybody else has access to the same tools that you have access to as well? The fourth point is that you can do so much more now with smaller teams. So before, that hiring process was such a huge part of a startup journey. And in a way, it was almost like a badge of honor. The more people you have, then the more successful you are, right? It's a proxy. You don't necessarily know how much revenue somebody's making, but okay, wow, they've got 100 employees, they're doing really well. The metrics are changing. Now you have VCs who are openly saying that they look at the metric of revenue per employee to determine how efficient somebody is being. And you have some of the companies such as Lovable, Cursor, Windsurf, etc., who have been able to do this and grow really rapidly their revenue while keeping very small teams. Now, when you look at that, it creates a huge amount of pressure on those people internally. But also when you think about it too, is that all those admin tasks that founders used to have to do before they could hire, it's so much quicker to do that now. There's so many different tasks where before you might think about, okay, I need to hire somebody for this or I need to work loads of hours to do this. Now you can actually just use AI to do it much quicker for you. And that enables you as a founder to focus much more on the actual underlying bits that are going to make the difference. The actual putting the foot to the ground, getting in the rooms you need to get into. So what you need to do now when you're building a startup is really look at what are the jobs to do. So jobs to do, and then for every job to do, can this be automated? Can it be done by AI? Or do you need a human being to do it? And if you need a human being to do it, it's looking at which skills can we merge here, right? Can we have somebody who's overseeing this and using AI to do it quicker? Or do you need a person who's really specialized in that area? And obviously for some roles, say for highly scientific roles, you're going to need somebody very experienced who really knows what they're talking about to be able to assess properly what AI is generating. Whereas for other tasks, you might not need the same level of depth. And what's incredible is just how AI is permeating across so many different levels of a startup. You can use it to speed up the coding, the marketing, and all other different areas, and use it for meeting notes, etc., right? So huge change now. But when you're thinking about how do I build a startup, it's less about who should I hire and more about what tools do I need. And for the existing team you have and the people you do decide you need, how can you get the most out of them by giving them AI tools and AI capabilities they need to make the most out of their time and their effort. And that brings me to my fifth point about data-driven decision-making. Before, for some elements of building a startup, you were just guessing and hoping for the best, right? And I still do that today sometimes. But what you can now do with AI is the models can be trained on so much external data that it can tell you which way to word your sentences, how to do a good hook, how to build in certain ways. You can spar with it, right? You can ask it, okay, based on how other companies and the data of you have in your model, what decisions should I make? Okay, these are my financials. Should I hire this or should I hire that? Or what's the best way to spend my money? You can now process so much data so quickly with AI, and especially with different tools, which are proprietary tools, and have access to that proprietary data, use it to make decisions so much quicker and so much more informed than you're once able to do. I think, personally, there's always going to be a space for that element of taste, of when everybody's using the same data, then you've got to have somebody who takes the risk into something that's unknown. And obviously, ChatGPT or these different tools, they don't know about the unknown, right? They don't know how fashion is going to change in the future. They don't know how consumer behavior or the way people think or what's going to get popular or unexpected events. So there's always going to be that element of those visionaries where they can change and see something that nobody else has seen yet. But it AI can be such a useful tool to just spar your ideas across, right? So you can say, pretend you're Leonardo da Vinci or pretend you're Elon Musk and have a chat with me about my idea and see what it says. And that is unheard of, right? That the access to information, access to insight you can get today is incredible. You just have to remember that everybody else has access too. So you want to make use of it as much as you can because your competitors might be doing the same thing. Point 6, the giants are awakening. Unlike almost any time that I can remember, the large corporates and governments are open to new software. Because before, you think about it, they're very risk averse. They have to think about what's the knock-on effects. Software was improving and updating, but it wasn't necessarily going 10x in a short amount of time. Whereas now that's happening, right? Now, if you're using software that's a year old, it's so out of date. And other people are doing things much quicker. And it's become existential, right? If you're a large company and all your competitors are using AI effectively and you're not, their margins are going up. They're doing better service to their clients than you are. And you've got to adapt very quickly. And you can see it right now where larger companies, maybe they're taking on less junior employees, maybe they're taking on less staff, and they're seeing how they can do things with AI. That's a very odd situation to be in because, and it's a sad situation too for so many people that they're not getting this opportunity they once was. And as a founder, you've got to work out if they're now looking and they're now open to ideas that maybe they weren't before, how do you get your idea in there? And how do you make sure that they're paying attention to what you're trying to build? Because it's going to have a huge impact on their business. And almost make them very aware of you talking to their competitors. Their competitors are interested. Maybe their competitors are going to use it before they do and create that FOMO. And looking at governments, it's no secret that so many governments are in huge amounts of debt. And they're now looking at how to make things more effective. Even, for example, with HMRC and different areas like that, there's these huge processes in place which are built so long ago, and now they're trying to be updated. It's a huge task. But if somebody, maybe you, can build an AI or a tool or a startup that's being able to make a huge difference at that giant scale, the contract sizes are massive. And this is the time now to seize that opportunity and see while these people and these large companies are getting, even the governments, are getting that permission from the top to go and spend money, to go and test new ideas, to go and make things happen. Can you capitalize? And finally, product market fit is no longer reliable. For so long in the startup world, product market fit was a holy grail. Product market fit is where you built something and the market wants it and it's going to grow and investors are going to back you, VCs are going to put money into you. And that was the aim, right? And the challenge is that so much of that relied on what the economists call ceteris paribus. Everything else staying more or less the same. Because then you know the market is going to be where it's going to be. It's not going to change dramatically. It's not going to move in different ways. And your product can stay fairly similar. You're going to have updates. You can have small changes. But broadly, you know that that product is going to meet the demands of people. They're going to be loyal to you and they're going to continue. What do you think has happened since OpenAI and ChatGPT? So many startups that a couple of years ago were flying high, were doing so well, have just been wiped out because the way AI and the way it's interfaced with how people do things and how the whole system works has completely changed. If you look at, for example, companies which are very heavily reliant on SEO, who are now losing out because people are using ChatGPT instead. People are changing their preferences. The whole strategies about how you go about everything is fundamentally changing at so many different levels. And problems that once existed just don't exist anymore in certain regards. And what was entire startups are now just features. AI has made some problems obsolete. And this makes building a startup fundamentally more risky than ever before. The reward is still there, you know that, right? Because you see these AI companies were growing massively and getting huge raises. But you might not be seeing, because it doesn't make the headlines, how many companies are folding? How many companies are now just zombies of where they're not really competing anymore? They're not really getting anywhere. In this world that's changing so rapidly, we don't know what's going to happen with AI regulation. We don't know what's going to happen in so many different areas. When you're trying to build a company and there's all this huge amount of uncertainty around you, it's a bigger challenge, right? And we've got to just be open and admit that. So even when you look at, for example, the platform risk, so many companies are wrappers, right? They're built on ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is. And they can do really well, they can grow really quickly. But at any point, if those companies start increasing the calls of APIs or how much it costs for a token, then all of a sudden the entire business model is gone. And it's what we call platform risk, right? Is that if, for example, in the past, you might build a company that's dependent on Facebook, where it's an add-on for Facebook. So many companies now are add-ons, in a way, for these large language models. And you saw it recently with Windsurf, which I won't get into too much detail, about what happens when somebody shuts off from that. So when you look at product market fit and whether or not there's a good business model, all of these different elements, now in this faster paced world, it can just disappear. So I know that's a scary final point, right? And the truth is, I don't have all the answers. And the point of this video is to make you think about these different challenges and how you're going to adapt to them and what you're going to do and how your strategy is going to change. Because you can choose to ignore what's happening and the way that things are changing, or you can choose to make a plan that might not work, but that's the life of entrepreneurship, right? You make a plan, things change, you're wrong, and then you go again. It's an exciting time, right? If you're a founder and you're doing this and you don't like the uncertainty, you're in the wrong industry. But there's different positive elements and everything's speeding up and everything's moving faster, and that means you can win so quickly. Like you can see people like Lovable and Windsurf are done, but it also means that everybody else is moving fast too. And you've got to keep running and keep sprinting to keep up.